If anyone from the layman stood in front of the Great Pyramid and looked at it, they will never believe it's built by a human being. My life is connected with this site.
Pyramids of Giza, everlasting monuments that have faced endless scrutiny, yet they are still to reveal much of their ancient secrets. When people see the pyramids, they often think that these are the only 3 monuments on the desert plateau. However, there is a vast and complex world in the immediate vicinity. If you take a moment from looking up at the pointed mounds and look down, there are endless clues and stories that unveil the 4th dynasty of Egypt from 4,500 years ago. The first person to be buried here at Giza.
It shows the carpentry skills in ancient Egypt.
Giza is filled with tombs and temples belonging to the families and officials of the pharaohs. These are the people that can help us understand the sacred site more. Many tombs have not yet been fully explored. This place commands many questions. Whose face is on the Sphinx? Who built the pyramids? And what was their purpose? We explore the entire surface of the Giza Plateau to discover the intriguing 4th dynasty family, the workers.
It's absolutely incredible. He's coming up, out of his burial chamber.
And the pharaohs. As someone who has never really cared much for this site, investigating this area has been a real eye-opener to separate fact from fiction.
The people like to dream. They said there is something hidden under the Sphinx. I did drill, 32 drilling.
Come with me to find the secrets of Giza. The Giza Plateau, a place filled with so many secrets, and I think I know just the man who can help me find the answers. Hello, Dr. Hawass.
Hi, Curtis. How are you?
I'm okay.
Come to my office now.
I'll see you in a sec.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Let's go. What do you see as the biggest misconception people have?
The reason I was giving a lecture today, and I was told that people, if anyone from the layman stood in front of the Great Pyramid and looked at it, he will never believe it's built by a human being because you don't know.
Yeah.
And most of the information written in books are wrong. They say the workmen who built the pyramids worked only 4 months a year, and all the stones came from Torah, and Khufu ruled 23 years. And the stones of the Great Pyramid are 2,300,000 blocks. If you think of that, 2 million in 40 years means every minute a stone to be moved, but this is not true.
It is true to say that people love to hear the facts about the Great Pyramid of Khufu. Like that it is built out of 2 million stones, each weighing a ton, and blah blah blah. This is because there is not much else to tell, and frankly, those facts bore me to tears. If we put several sources together, we can begin to construct a full story of history. These structures were built by man. These people who say that each stone is perfectly cut and exactly even have clearly never visited Giza. For when we look at the pyramids close up, we can see how each stone is roughly cut and made to fit into the next. They are simply not even and not perfect at all. And most of the blocks still have their visible chisel marks. The recent discovery of a fragmented papyrus belonging to an official called Meresankh tells us exactly where the blocks were quarried and how they were transported via the Nile down to Khufu, the horizon of Khufu, the ancient name for Giza. Meresankh also tells us about the casing stones that were brought from Tura, some of which are piled up right next to the Great Pyramid. Meresankh also goes on to mention the quarrymen and the builders of Khufu's monument. The blocks to build the pyramid were brought to Giza via boat. Amazingly, several boats were found around the Great Pyramid in stone pits. One was reassembled and gives us this glorious boat of Khufu that some believe was used in the construction of the pyramid. Others say it was simply used by Khufu, and others suggest that the boats were never used and were placed there to help Khufu sail to his next life. We know from this papyrus and tombs that the pyramid is for Khufu, but another text inside the pyramid tells us more.
Sneferu, Khufu, one of the names of the gangs who built the pyramid. The followers of Khufu. This is the red color that Khufu brought, that the workmen used as a graffiti to paint the pyramid. We are sure that this graffiti left by the workmen who built the pyramid.
Similar red texts have been found in tombs near the pyramid.
Most of the people, when they go inside the pyramid alone, they do meditation because the pyramid makes silence. It makes you away from all this trouble, from this world. You feel yourself and you love this moment that you can sit down and close your eyes. It's really a beautiful moment. And that's really, in my opinion, is the magic. Pyramids made the Egyptian to know about art and astronomy.
The largest fate of irony is that Khufu has the most gigantic monument in the world, yet the only image we have of him is a 7-centimeter tall ivory statue that was discovered miles away at the most ancient site of Abydos. The Greek historian Herodotus talks about Khufu being a man who was tyrannical in his rulership, who had 100,000 slaves to build the pyramid. Yet most of what Herodotus says can be dismissed. He visited Egypt 2,000 years after the pyramids were built and wrote tales from oral histories, which were mistranslated by the Greek writer. We can tell this in part by how he adapts the pharaohs' names to become more understood in Greek. Khufu becoming Cheops, Khafre becoming Khafre, and Menkaure becoming Mycerinus. They sound similar, but he clearly misheard much of what he was told by the local Egyptians. We can understand that much of what Herodotus says is pure fiction. He states that Khufu had all the temples closed and banned leaving offerings in them. Yet, a papyrus that has the sons of Khufu recounting stories to the king about the great ancestors clearly tells us that Khufu would order offerings to be left in the temples to honor these ancestors. I don't know about you, but I'd rather believe an Egyptian papyrus from the age of Khufu than a story written 2,000 years later by someone who didn't speak the local language fluently.
People all the time talk about pyramids and they talk about aliens and things like that. But the discovery of the tombs of the pyramid builders actually is one of the most important discovery, because it proves from the names of the people that the builder of the pyramids were Egyptians and they were not slaves. And also the recent discovery of the Wadi al-Jarf papyri that many people doesn't know really about it. It tells us for the first time about the construction of Khufu pyramid. It's a story from the overseer of the workman. His name is Mirror. He took 40 workmen. He went to Torah to cut the white fine limestone. And after that went to Sinai to bring the cover. And he said the Giza Plateau was called Khufu, means Khufu lives.
Yes.
Great Pyramid was called Akhet Khufu, means the horizon of Khufu. And he talked about Khufu lived in his palace at Giza.
But where did these pyramid builders and their families live, such as Merer? An overlooked site adjacent to the Giza pyramids can provide the answers. A thick stone wall with a small archway in the middle, now called the Wall of the Crow, separates the domain of the dead from the living. Below the hill and behind the wall is a large settlement that proved to date to the 4th dynasty.
I found the tombs of the pyramid builders, and I found out that there was 10,000 workmen involved in the construction of the pyramid, and they work every day, and they take 1 day off every 10 days.
Yeah.
All the stones for building the pyramid came 300 meters away from the base of the pyramid. We found evidence that Khufu ruled for 28 years. And we have the papyri, or Wadi al-Jarf papyri, tells us about building the pyramid. Then people like to dream, but leave them to dream. But I wrote a book, me and Mark Cleaner, about pyramid, Giza and the pyramid, that have the answer of all the questions that the public has.
The remains of the houses could tell us that people living there used to have a diet of beef, fish, and beer. The village appears to be divided into 2 halves. One for the overseers and their families, and the other with dormitory-like sleeping quarters for the workers of the pyramids. On the slope of the hill was the first cemetery, with more simple-style tombs, and higher on the hill were more elaborately decorated tombs for high officials, such as Pateti, who seems to have been in charge of the payment of food to the workers. For in his tomb, we see him overseeing the making of bread and beer. The tomb of Nefertiti explains he had 2 wives who would go to the Khufu pyramid each day to make sure that the workers received enough water on the job. Nefertiti's tomb also contains a warning to all.
Anyone who harms my tomb will be consumed by the Nile crocodile, the hippo, and the lion.
The mummies of these people who lived and worked here reveal to us that they were well cared for. Many people showing signs of successful medical procedures, from limbs that had been placed in splints to a head operation. These men could clearly not have been slaves, as the men and their families were well cared for.
The discovery that you made of the workman's village, what is the key piece of evidence from there that is the most important, you believe?
That the builder of the pyramids were Egyptians, because all the names were Egyptian names. And also they were not slaves, because they buried in the center of the pyramid. And also the pyramid was a national project of the whole nation. Every household in the south and the north of Egypt participated in building a pyramid by sending workforce and food to help the king.
All these people worked on the building of the pyramids and would make their way to work each day through the Wall of the Crow. The remarkable thing is that when we visit the museum in Cairo, we can witness these men and women at work still. Statues showing them making bread and beer were found at Giza, at the workmen's village, and around the pyramid tombs. We can also see brilliant statues showing family scenes. A scribe and artist named Sneferu is still alive in full color, from his turquoise necklace to his mustache. Sneferu was promoted to the overseer of Khufu's boats later in his life. Many people who have no education in the background of pyramids claim that they were never tombs, and these kinds of people have a reluctancy to investigate the facts. How do we know that the pyramids were tombs? Well, first and foremost, there are almost 100 pyramids in Egypt. The earliest dating to Djoser in the 3rd dynasty. All pyramids have a burial chamber with a sarcophagus inside. The Pyramid of Unas from the 5th dynasty has some of the most incredible texts inside his burial chamber around his sarcophagus, which tell us that this was his house of eternity, his tomb. There are several papyrus texts that remain mentioning the pyramids as tombs, most notably one from the reign of Ramses IX, where a gang of tomb robbers confess to stealing gold from a pharaoh's pyramid.
We took our copper tools and forced a way into the pyramid of this king. We found the Lord laying at the back of his burial chamber, and we found the burial place of the queen beside his. We opened their coffins and found the royal mummy of the king equipped. We collected the gold that we found on the mummy of the Lord. We set fire to their coffins.
We as Egyptologists have all the evidence to prove that pyramids built by Egyptian, it was a tomb for the king.
Yeah.
But the people who talks about aliens and people came, they don't have any evidence, just dreaming.
Yet I hear you exclaim, "But Curtis, there were never any mummies found in pyramids." Wrong. There have been a few mummies discovered in their pyramid burial chambers, such as Meresankh, the father of the 6th dynasty pharaoh, Pepi II, whose mummy was discovered in his pyramid at Saqqara. Then discovered by Dr. Zahi Hawass the decayed and charred remains of the 6th dynasty queen, Shesheshet, also discovered in her pyramid at Saqqara. And records state that inside Djoser's pyramid, in his looted sarcophagus, there was a mummified foot remaining, now lost. And of course, my favorite discovery inside a pyramid, at the pyramid of Amenemhat III. In a side chamber, the mummy of the 13th dynasty pharaoh, Hor Awibra, was found with his funerary goods fully intact. His decayed corpse was found in his coffin, with a beautiful death mask placed over his mummy. When archaeologists tried to take the death mask out of the coffin, his skull was glued into the mask with resins and remains there till today. And even more intriguing is what was found in a pyramid at Giza. What inspired Pharaoh Khufu to construct the pyramid? To get closer to the answer, we must go 30 kilometers south of Giza. At Dashur, 2 pyramids can be found, both belonging to the father of Khufu, the bringer of beauty, Pharaoh Sneferu. He was in pursuit to create the perfect pyramid. In this venture, he had a pyramid made at Dashur that was problematic.
They made this pyramid way too steep. The stones started to crumble and push out on the sides when they reached the middle. So they had to change the angle, resulting in this mess.
Sneferu erected a large stela at the bent pyramid before abandoning it. He then tried again, resulting in his perfect pyramid.
And in the end, Pharaoh Sneferu, after 2 failed attempts to build the perfect pyramid, came up with the design for his perfect pyramid, now known as the Red Pyramid.
Between these 2 pyramids, we can find the tombs of many officials and family members. Sneferu's son, Hetepheres II, contained a beautiful scene showing the prince as a high priest, wearing a leopard coat. Other family members buried around the Red Pyramid were Ka-Nefer, who oversaw the building of Sneferu's pyramid, Nechet Rapef, and his daughter Nefer-Nesut. We know from papyrus texts that Khufu had visited Sneferu's pyramid in pursuit for inspiration for his own tomb. We have the words of Khufu's son, Jedefhor.
His Majesty the King of the Upper and Lower Lands, Khufu, has spent the day seeking for himself the chambers of the sanctuary at the Jed Sneferu in order to make something similar for himself, for his horizon, Akhet Khufu.
The words in the papyrus reveal that Khufu had indeed gone to the pyramids of Sneferu to prepare the planning for his own pyramid. We also know that Sneferu had a smaller pyramid built for his queen, which was used as the tomb for his secondary wife. His first wife, who lived longer than the pharaoh, named Hetepheres, was buried at the site of Akhet Khufu. It is possible that the wife of Sneferu and the mother of Khufu was the inspiration for the location of the Giza burials. Queen Hetepheres, the mother of Khufu, was the first person to be buried here at Giza. She was buried in a shaft tomb similar to this one. This is when the tomb was discovered. It was quite a spectacle. Inside the tomb, we found her sarcophagus, along with flat pack furniture, and some of the most splendid finds in the tomb of the mother of Khufu, the woman that inspired the Giza Plateau. They found a chair, a golden chair, and bracelets that went all the way up the queen's arms, decorated with silver and butterflies. So this, a normal pit tomb, is what inspired this vast necropolis. Over at the National Museum of Civilization, Dr. Sahar Salim has some fascinating information on the treasures of Hetepheres.
Here she is.
Dr. Salim,
Hi!
Oh, Curtis. Welcome to the dynamic, Curtis.
It's beautiful. I can't wait to see what you're going to show me.
This is the chair of Hetepheres, mother of King Khufu from the 4th dynasty, found inside her tomb with other luxurious furniture of her. This is a custom-made chair for the queen. You can see the base. It's a wide base, and the height of the legs are very short. This could tell us that she could be a big lady and a little bit short. It was custom made to make her sit comfortably. That's why there is sort of sloping of the seat. It's a little bit longer in front than in the back. It's 27 centimeter in front, while it is only 26 centimeter at the back. Also, the height of the arm are perfectly made in order to suit comfort. This was very important to place here in Civilization Museum because it shows the carpentry skills in ancient Egypt.
We have around the pyramids, we have the mastabas and the tombs for
we have
family members.
Yes.
And that helps us to prove that.
No, the most important proof that we have now is the Wadi al-Jarf papyri.
Yes.
It tells us for the first time about building the pyramid and the diary of Merer, who was the overseer of the work.
And the fact that it's a tomb, yeah.
Yes.
the family members of Khufu are buried around the pyramid. On the southern side, we can find the tombs of his brothers, sisters, wives, and children, although many of the tombs are laying in ruin now from 4,500 years of weathering and tomb robbing. Some tombs have exposed much about Khufu and his family. The pyramid of Meresankh, the sister and wife of Khufu, contained a false door, which features many of the royal family members. By having this false door, this also proves that her pyramid was in fact a tomb. Another pyramid for a queen is that of another sister and wife of Khufu, Henutsen. Inside her pyramid, we have her giant sarcophagus, as well as two other burial containers for her daughters. Henutsen and Khufu had 3 sons together, 2 of which were buried in mastaba tombs near their father and mother, namely Menkaure, who served as the vizier to his father toward the end of his reign. Menkaure's giant granite sarcophagus can now be viewed in the Cairo Museum. The next son was Khufu Khafre, the herder of the sacred Apis bull. His tomb was directly in front of his mother's pyramid. His tomb was elaborately decorated inside and out, with many scenes showing the prince with his mother and his wife. Outside his tomb is a broken image of Khufu Khaf and his father, Khufu. It is evident that the male behind is Khufu, from the ceremonial bull's tail worn only by the pharaoh at the back of his kilt. Another brother of Khufu, named Ankhaf, was also interred in a tomb with the family in Giza. Ankhaf played a big role in the building of Khufu's pyramid. He was the overseer of the lake of Khufu, Ra-She Khufu. According to the papyrus of Merer, this was a stopping and control point for the transportation of the stone blocks to build the Great Pyramid. This area was under control of Ankhaf. He then later raised his status to vizier. A tomb at Giza from the reign of Khufu has one of the most beautiful scenes from the Old Kingdom. The daughter of Khufu, Nefertiabet, is shown seated before offerings. She's shown with long black hair, wearing an exquisite leopard print dress, which does impress much. Many of Khufu's family were in high-powered positions, including high priests and priestesses, indicated through the leopard print. The burials spread to a nephew of Khufu named Hemiunu. His tomb was discovered in 1912 on the western side, around high officials' tombs. His large mastaba is badly damaged. However, a marvelous statue of Hemiunu remains, showing the man in a lifelike manner. The statue names him as the architect of Khufu. This man designed the Great Pyramid. The western tombs around the Khufu pyramid are not the burial sites for just family of Khufu, but also the officials, courtiers, and some pyramid workers. In actuality, the legacy of Pharaoh Khufu appears to have stretched far beyond the populace of his own rule and dynasty. Men and women of the 5th and 6th dynasty wanted to be connected to the burial site of the great ancestor Khufu as a way to push their souls into the sky and be reborn in the new world. For these people, the connection to the Great Pyramid would ensure them a prosperous eternity.
Let's go see the tomb of Idu. From the time of Pharaoh Pepi, these beautiful statues of the man waiting for his spirit coming out before the Hetep, the offering table. We just see him from here. It's absolutely incredible. He's coming up out of his burial chamber, just waiting for his family to bring the offerings. The tomb, of course, is below. This is just the chapel. So beautifully decorated, so fine and precise, like so much of the Old Kingdom art.
Idu was a judge, or as the ancient Egyptians called it, determiner of disputes. He also held the very important role of overseer of the priests of Khufu's spirit at the Great Pyramid. He was given this role by Pharaoh Pepi I of the 6th dynasty. The entrance of his tomb contains a curse, stating,
Any man who enters my tomb with impure intentions shall be painfully punished.
A lighter side to Idu is that he had his wife, daughter, and his son and successor represented in the tomb with him. Offerings were left here for Idu, and right next door, offerings were left for his son, Kahar. Kahar had his tomb constructed next door to his father. He became the overseer of the priests of Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure, and Meresankh. Kahar was first a scribe, who became the overseer of the village, and eventually a priest of justice. He has lifelike statues at the end of the tomb that show himself at stages of his life, as well as his wife and son. Left of this room is where Kahar was laid to rest behind a sealed wall. There appears to be a succession of a family line of men all named Sneferu. This family appear around the end of the reign of Khufu and continue to the end of the 6th dynasty. They were of very high status and had their tombs constructed at the base of the pyramid of Khufu. In a temple-like manner, Sneferu II erected pillars at the start of the path between the other tombs on the way to his tomb, in a sort of mortuary causeway fashion, similar to what the pharaoh would have. Even his tomb on the outside appears like a temple. By the time of Sneferu IV, his tomb was now made as a funerary temple and tomb all in one. His large pillared tomb has 2 statues of the man himself seated outside, made from granite. Next to Sneferu are miniature obelisks. He served as manager of the 6th dynasty pharaoh Pepi II's harem and palaces. The outer walls show Sneferu with his daughter and other family members bringing offerings to him. However, the idea of a temple-like tomb can be found dating back to the 4th dynasty at the end of Khufu's reign, with several of his officials sharing similar designs. Many treasures and entire tombs have been spread throughout the world from Giza, including the Neues Museum in Berlin. 4,500 years later, some of these tombs can now be marveled at in Berlin. This tomb belonged to 2 men, one the mayor of Memphis and the other the overseer of the mortuary temple of the pharaoh.
Mehen and Neferbou-Ptah, they were nobles that lived during the time of Pharaoh Khufu during the 4th dynasty while the Great Pyramid was being built. Here we see Neferu Ptah holding the staff to show that he's a nobleman in full color. And as we go down, we see Neferu Ptah with his hand up, showing that he can write. He's about to start writing something on a wall. And up here is his boss's name, Khufu, the owner of the Great Pyramid. And this entire mastaba was taken from Giza and brought here to Berlin.
Khufu had many of his loyal followers buried close by around his pyramid.
This is Merib, the commander of the troops during Pharaoh Khufu's reign. We see Merib here as he's entering his tomb, his name written here, Merib, with the heart scarab as his name ending with the B. And here we can see Khufu's cartouche, Khufu. It's just incredible to think that this is from the time of the Great Pyramid. That's around 4,300 years old. It is absolutely mind-blowing.
In the doorway we see a family scene of Merib, his son, daughter, and his wife welcoming the body into the tomb.
And here is Merib, the commander of the troops for Pharaoh Khufu, and his beautiful wife, dressed in the traditional 4th dynasty dress with the breasts exposed and a high-waisted skirt. I wonder how they brought this all the way from Giza to Berlin.
The 4th dynasty was one of the highest points. However, after the death of Khufu, many family quarrels would cause many issues, including the end of a dynasty. The tombs dotted around the Great Pyramid of Khufu go from the simplest mud brick with almost nothing notable about them to wondrous displays of grandeur.
And even some tombs here at Giza are still decorated in full color.
Meresankh, a priestess of the goddess Hathor and Khufu's spirit, has one of the most delicately decorated. She is thought to be the daughter of Pharaoh Sahura, a later 5th dynasty king. She may have even been the descendant of the high official Seneb, the famed dwarf from the reign of Khufu. A descendant of Seneb named Senakht is shown in the priestess's tomb. Her tomb also features the name of a son and successor of Khufu, who is shrouded in speculation, Jedefra. Khufu was not the immediate successor of Pharaoh Sneferu. A prince, son of Sneferu and brother of Khufu, was the first in line to the throne. Yet this prince died young, and his brother Khufu became the successor. Rahotep and his wife Nofret were buried in a mastaba tomb by the unfinished pyramid of Sneferu at Maidum. Their statues are some of the most realistic and lifelike in all of Egyptian art. Their perfectly rendered features and eyes give us the best idea of what the 4th dynasty Egyptians resembled. As for the successor of Khufu, this should have been Prince Kawab, the eldest son of Khufu. Yet, he died suddenly, leaving his wife Hetepheres II behind. Kawab's brother married Hetepheres II and was named as Pharaoh upon Khufu's death, becoming Pharaoh Jedefra. Naturally, speculation surrounds Kawab's death, leaning toward the idea that Jedefra killed him to become Pharaoh. linked with the fact that he married Hetepheres II to secure his succession, and built his pyramid away from Giza. He only ruled for 7 years before being succeeded by his brother. Hetepheres II lived a very long life, dying in the reign of the 4th dynasty king Shepseskaf. And interestingly, she was not buried near Jedefra, but rather Kawab, her first husband. Over at the Namek Museum, some of her treasures can be marveled at. Although the most impressive, from royal implements to ceremonial objects, has to be a female-headed sphinx from the pyramid of Jedefra, with the name of Hetepheres herself. Another clue that Jedefra needed his wife and wanted her as a sphinx to protect his tomb. Many have even gone as far as to say that the Great Sphinx of Giza was commissioned by Jedefra to show his father's features and thus reinforcing his legitimacy. This theory comes from the Sphinx of Hetepheres II, quite a way to be remembered as the first human female-headed sphinx. With Jedefra now dead, the next son of Khufu had his time to shine, building the second largest pyramid at Giza. Pharaoh Khafre. Very little is known about Khafre the man, but like his father, his family, courtiers, and workers were afforded the opportunity to have their tombs created in the shadow of his pyramid. This way to raise their level of prestige to nearly that of the pharaoh himself. One such man was Khensut, the chief hairdresser of the royals, whose tomb is next door to the Great Sphinx, the very first in the central field of burials. His other titles were the Guardian of the Diadem, which leads us back to the Cairo Museum, with its almost endless hallways and secret rooms filled with overlooked treasures, where we can still see one of these 4th dynasty diadems. This golden diadem sits atop what looks like a bust or a reserve head of a princess, but you would be wrong. In fact, this is the head of a princess's mummy. Mummification evolved over time. Around the 4th and 5th dynasty, for a short period, mummies were coated in mud and then plaster in an experiment to preserve the deceased's facial features, rendering them more lifelike. For these men and women, especially royals, their faces needed to be recognizable to the gods to enter heaven. Examples of these are rare, but some have skulls visible through the broken coverings. Like the princess, her skull still visible, head broken off near a beautiful faience beaded necklace. Looking at her, this is as lifelike as an ancient could get. Inside the museum are many treasures from Giza and the 4th dynasty that many simply walk by, some with the most intriguing details. One of these scenes from a son of Khafre shows a woman representing towns bringing in offerings for the king. . We can even see Khafre on a boat, the king seated on a throne, holding the flail. Strangely, the man before him has been hacked out. Boats were extremely important, as we know, and some tombs in Khafre's necropolis have scenes of boats. A tomb of Ankhenib was shared with his wife. Toward the middle of Khafre's reign and pyramid construction, there was a significant strain on the economy. We even see tombs of officials that are roughly decorated, or even some made from mud brick, surrounded by people's burials of a lesser, higher status. Walking through these tombs, it feels as if one is in an ancient city. Then again, it was but a city for the dead. Many tombs have been looted and the bodies destroyed. But in one prince of Khafre named Ankh-Mara, his body was found along with his son. This is the view that the spirits of these ancient people witnessed. Tombs covered in fine writings, jutting out from the golden sands of ages. Below the pyramid of Khafre is another set of burials, most dating to his children who outlived their father and took on important roles under the 5th dynasty kings. Khafre is believed to have had over 16 children from his 4 wives. His eldest son, who served as vizier, priest, judge, and scribe, named Nyakara, was buried in the cliff below his father's pyramid. He was destined to be the next pharaoh, but died before Khafre. His father had this triad statue carved into the cliff, showing Nyakara, his father and mother, as a way for his family to assist him in reaching the next life. And having other royals buried in the cliff served as a multi-purpose tomb. Although, one strange thing you notice about Khafre: he did not build pyramids for his queens. Instead, he built tombs for them. Could this have been an indication of the bad economy? His first wife, Ka-mer-Nebti, was buried at Khufu's pyramid near the most magnificent tomb made for his second wife, and I'm going to take you inside.
The tomb for Meresankh is closed, so just waiting for them to go and get the guy with the key so I can go inside.
Meresankh was the second wife of Pharaoh Khafre. Her majestic tomb is one of the best for a queen in all of Egypt. Her chapel has a wall with statues of 10 women to accompany the queen, presumably her ladies-in-waiting, or her children, family members, and king's wives. The absolute highlight of the tomb is a wall featuring Meresankh in the middle, with all 6 of her children around her. Her eldest son, Nebemakht, who became Khafre's vizier. Her youngest daughter and son, are shown at her feet, one holding the royal Khufu bird. Meresankh is shown wearing a white and yellow dress with a cat's face on her hip, and a short cropped hairstyle. She holds the queenly implements. Before her are the titles She Who Sees the God Horus and Set. Yet another strong woman is shown before Meresankh, an elegant and regal woman, another queen whose appearance fascinates the imagination. Many Egyptologists suggest that this is Hetepheres II, the mother of Meresankh. However, Hetepheres II is shown in the tomb already on the opposite wall. The mother and daughter are shown sailing on a boat together, Meresankh behind her mother. And she has long black hair, unlike the woman with the short blonde hair. Hetepheres II is always shown with long hair, even on a statue of her and Meresankh. In my opinion, this blonde-haired lady named Hetepheres is none other than the mother of Khufu, Hetepheres I, leading Meresankh, her great-granddaughter, into the next life. We have Hetepheres here shown with the blonde hair. Oh, it's died. Shown with the blonde hair over here, and these strange pointed shoulder pads, almost something like out of the 80s. Opposite this is the father of Meresankh and the son of Khufu that died too soon and didn't fulfill his destiny to become the next pharaoh, Kawab. He is seen holding a staff, while symbolically leading in a parade of offerings into the tomb of his daughter, capturing birds of the marshes, where he recounts.
Meresankh pulls papyrus for Hathor in the marshland with her mother. They see every good thing which is in the marsh.
A row of men and women bearing offering baskets for her from Khafre, Jedefra, and her grandfather Khufu. A fleet of boats are seen transporting the queen. She is shown under a canopy and seated on a throne, and craftsmen are shown making spirit statues of Meresankh. On the queen's false door, she is seated on a lion throne. The door where her spirit could visit the tomb to receive these offerings. These offerings, led into the tomb by Kawab, were collated in spirit by her chief steward, Khmetnu, who is shown several times in her tomb. At the entrance, he is shown reading a papyrus before the queen, who is standing with the jackal god Anubis above. Reri, another steward, on the other side, bringing in a hyena to the queen. These canine creatures were connected to the leader of the dead into the next life. Through the arch, we enter her inner sanctum, where once a year the sun would light up a second false door, energizing her spirit. This room leads us down into the queen's once sealed burial chamber. I'm inside the burial chamber, deep below the tomb of Meresankh, the princess. The lights have just gone out, which is a little concerning, but I wanted to show everybody what was found in this tomb. This is Meresankh's sarcophagus, her stone sarcophagus, which had been plundered in ancient times. This is the remains of Meresankh inside her sarcophagus, all pulled to pieces. This is quite sad to see, because the people came in here looking for gold and they ripped her body apart to find all the gold inside. And this is the skull of Meresankh, the skull that was found in this very room I'm in right now, in the dark with no electricity. This is the princess. We're coming face to face with her in her final resting place. It's quite something to be face to face with Meresankh. And this is a list of all the things that were found in the tomb of Meresankh. And this tells us that all the gold was taken out, because all that was left over was her sarcophagus, a wooden false door, and some stone statues and stone vases. But this, in here, tells us more about the princess than any other thing inside this tomb. The bones of this princess, what was remaining, is what tells us more than any of the decorations on her tomb. You can hear the echo. I think I'm just going to have a moment to myself. Even though Meresankh's burial chamber is not decorated, it has these quartz crystals inside the stone, so that when they left the candle burning in the tomb, as they left, all of these would have been twinkling, these little shiny stones, like the night sky for Princess Meresankh.
Texts in her tomb read,
Great favorite of Pharaoh, priestess of Hathor, mistress of Dendera, the companion of Horus, beloved of him. May she proceed in peace upon the paths on which an honored one proceeds, having gone well with her in the sight of the great God. May offerings go forth to her at the first day of the festival. Meresankh, she who loves life, one who is noble in the sight of Anubis.
when her tomb was sealed, her soul would hopefully fly up to be greeted by a set of motherly figures, whom would protect and look over the Queen's final burial site. To record for eternity, the Queen had scribes carved into the walls. Scribes were heavily important in ancient Egypt. They would take dictation from the king or officials, send international correspondence, assist with diplomacy, study religious texts, and compel the words of the gods, something Meresankh wanted to ensure. The sad thing is, Meresankh died middle-aged, presumably from silent sinus syndrome, evident in her skull, causing mucus to build up and breathing difficulties. She died just after her husband Khafre, before her tomb was ready, yet the successor king had her tomb completed, and she was buried 275 days after her death. Khafre's greatest achievement is his pyramid tomb, named in ancient times as Weren Khafre, meaning the spirit of the sun god Ra. Khafre is great. Khafre, the son of Khufu, had his pyramid placed next to his father's. It may appear larger, but it is not. Only looking larger due to the rise of the plateau. The pyramid is reached via a long causeway that begins at the valley temple of Khafre and the Sphinx. Along the causeway are tombs of people Khafre would have known, but a strange set of tombs lay right next to the causeway, dug into the sides of a large square pit that many suggest was originally a water well, with canals filling it from the Nile in front of the Sphinx temple. This causeway would have been the king's final journey on the mortal earth, where his mummified body would be carried in a grand procession in the presence of priests, queens, princesses and princes, high officials, and his successor. This procession would end at the mortuary temple at the base of his pyramid, where his mummified body would be fully prepared with the final touches before being placed in his granite sarcophagus inside his pyramid. He would have the rites of opening the senses performed to ensure he would be able to function when his soul moved onwards. This temple, now in complete ruin, is also where Khafre would be worshipped as a god after his burial. Inside would have been several alabaster statues of the king, of which only one is still intact, each separate chapel containing a statue. Boat pits were also found around this temple. In the 1800s, Belzoni said that all he found inside the pyramid's sarcophagus were animal bones. But these bones are now gone and thus can't be checked by experts. Khafre's pyramid was once cased in white limestone, yet plundered over the centuries. All that remains are these impressive upper casing stones. Above all, probably the greatest enigma of the Giza Plateau is the Great Sphinx. Of the thousands of sphinxes made in Egypt over the thousands of years, this giant remains the largest and most mysterious. The human-headed lion sits at the edge of the Giza Plateau, in front
of all three of the king's pyramids and the numerous other burials. In essence, the Sphinx is the protector of the site. For you see, this was the actual purpose of a Sphinx in Egypt, the protector of a sacred site. Although this creature may appear to be elegant, serene, and beautiful, for the ancients, it was crafted to strike fear into the viewer. Yet, there are various forms of sphinxes in Egypt. This specific one was the guardian. Lions have always played a large role in Egyptian religion. The male lion god, Aker, being the lion on which the sun rested as it rose each day. Yet, whose face is on the enigmatic beast? Some have suggested that it predates the Giza pyramids. However, evidence disproves this. 1,000 years after the death of Khafre, during the 18th dynasty, a young prince named Thutmosis IV erected a stela between the paws of the Sphinx, or, in its ancient name, Horem-Akhet, Horus of the Horizon, telling a fantastic tale.
Hunting lions and flocks, and riding in his chariot, his horses faster than the wind. The hour came to give rest to his followers at the limbs of Horem-Akhet. Prince Thutmosis came passing by at the time of midday, and he sat down in the shadow of the great god. Sleep seized him, asleep at the time when the sun was at its zenith. And he found the majesty of the noble god speaking with his own mouth, like the words of a father for his son, saying, "Look at me, see me, my son Thutmosis. I am your father, Horem-Akhet, born of Atur, and I shall give you kingship on earth in front of all the living ones. You shall wear the white and red crowns upon the throne of Ger. The earth shall be yours, in its length and width. Everything that the eye of the Lord of all illuminates. The food of the two lands shall be yours, as well as the great tributes of every foreign land. Your lifetime will be a time great in years. My face is yours, my heart is yours, as you are a protector to me. For my current condition is like one that is in need. All my limbs, as if they were dismembered, as the sands of the desert upon which I lie have reached me. So run to me, to have that done which I desire. Know that you are my son and my protector. Come forth, and I shall be with you. I shall be your leader."
Unfortunately, the stela is damaged, and the story begins to break off. The final legible lines state,
The king's son awoke hearing this. He understood the words of the god, and he put them in his heart. They shall protect the offerings to the god, which we bring for him, oxen, fruit, and all vegetables. And we shall give praise to the ancestors. Khafre's image, seen by Atur, Horem-Akhet.
This last line gives us a strong indication that the Sphinx was created in Khafre's image. Preceding Thutmose IV, Amenhotep II completed work on a new temple built to the side of the Sphinx, now known as the New Sphinx Temple, and set up a band of priests whose sole purpose was to give offerings to the Great Sphinx. The temple seems to be along the same design as Old Kingdom solar temples, which would then be connected to the worship of the sun god, with ceremonies being performed on a raised platform reached by staircases, connecting Horus of the horizon, the Sphinx, to the majesty of the rising and setting sun. Many small stela indicating this have been found in the temple, dedicated by priests, some even from hundreds of years later, from the reign of Ramses II. From these stela, we get the impression that Thutmose IV had a large statue of himself placed at the paws of the Sphinx, behind the dream stela. The addition of a pleated Osiride-style beard was also added in the 18th dynasty, as this was not present during the Old Kingdom. Fragments of this beard are now in the United Kingdom. The giant cobra from the Nemes crown of the Sphinx is also broken off through the millennia and is now on display at the Cairo Museum. Thutmose IV did not stop at simply uncovering the Sphinx, adding the beard, then also having various cracks filled in, and most strikingly, he had the Sphinx repainted. Many of the blue, yellow, and red paint flecks are still visible on the ancient visage and Nemes headcloth. The Sphinx has undergone several makeovers in its lifetime. The Romans, 1,000 years after Thutmose IV, were captivated by the Sphinx, yet again uncovering it from the sand, building a new staircase to the paws, and adding a casing of limestone bricks around the body to protect the very soft and crumbling limestone mound that the entire Sphinx was carved from. The question has always been asked, if there were tunnels under the Sphinx? Well, the answer is yes and no. The Romans had dug several tunnels under the Sphinx, only to discover that it was solid stone.
The Sphinx, they said there is something hidden under the Sphinx. I did drill, 32 drilling, and I found the Sphinx is a solid rock and living rock, and there is nothing underneath.
Yeah, exactly.
Major important things. And also, when people always accuse me of hiding evidence of lost civilization, and I always say, how can you hide evidence? When I found out the water table rise in front of the Sphinx, I had to drill. I did drill 32 drilling around the whole Sphinx.
Wow.
And I found out that the Sphinx is a solid rock and a living rock, and there is really nothing is underneath the Sphinx.
Many centuries after the Romans, the Arab conquerors would deface the Sphinx when they found the locals still leaving offerings before what they saw as a pagan idol. The occasional Egyptologist is led to theorize that on the chest of the Sphinx is the Egyptian heart glyph, making the name Weserib, meaning great heart, a throne name of Khafre. However, some dismiss this lump to be a support from when the 18th dynasty beard was attached. Apart from the evidence of the dream stela mentioning Khafre, another reason to believe the Sphinx was made by this pharaoh is the two temples in front of the beast. The so-called Old Sphinx Temple was created from the same limestone as the temple next door and Sphinx itself. It is also aligned perfectly to the Sphinx and the setting sun. This temple was never finished, leading some to speculate that Khafre had died before its completion. The temple never received its outer casing of granite and ceremonial statues, unlike the other. The Old Sphinx Temple is also the exact same design as the mortuary temple of Khafre next to his pyramid. The temple next door, the Valley Temple, we know was built by Khafre, as on the granite facade, evidence of his cartouche was discovered. Yet the inside of the marvelous construction confirms who it was for. Inside the granite columned hall, 25 statues of Khafre would have stood. Only a few survived these 5,000 years. If we head back to the Cairo Museum, the full might of Khafre can be contemplated. This life-size statue of Khafre from his Valley Temple, made from a greenish diorite stone that had to be specifically brought from the deserts of Libya. The hyper-detailed image shows the delicate yet powerful features of Khafre. His name and titles appear at the base, adjacent to his feet, with even the toenails that have been rendered lifelike. Seated on a throne with papyrus motifs, headed by lions. One hand relaxed, the other making a fist, as he wears only a pleated kilt with the ceremonial bull's tail attached. However, the beautiful face and well-physiqued king is not the highlight. At the back of his striped nemes is a beautiful symbol, a falcon with its wings opened and enclosing the king. This falcon is the god Horus. The pharaoh is Horus on earth. This falcon is protecting the king and connecting him to the eternal rebirth of the sun. The temple, with its splendid granite columns, was once roofed with slits cut in to allow the sun to shine on the statues of Khafre. The light would reflect up off of the polished alabaster floor. At the side chamber is where the sacred act would take place. The Valley Temple is where Khafre's body would have been mummified for 70 days upon his death. One side of the temple is dedicated to the goddess Hathor, the other to Bastet, and played the pivotal role in preparing the king to become one with Osiris in his rebirth to the next life. When this site was in use during the 4th dynasty, the Nile would arrive right before the Sphinx temples, and the flood was controlled through canals leading to the plateau and tombs. There were even 2 ports created where the boats would dock and bring the precious cargo, including many royal visitors. The same boats that we see and read about from the carvings and papyri left over. The modern district of Giza would have been flooded in ancient times with the great Nile River, making the landscape we see now a much
different place. Many tourists overlook the docks, yet this would have been the main point of entry to the site. Khafre's causeway began at the Valley Temple and led up along the Sphinx, ending at the foot of his pyramid, making way for the next pharaoh.
What do you imagine the pharaohs 1,000 years after Khufu thought of the pyramids? We see like Tutmosis IV with the Dream Stealer. What do you feel that they might have...
No, but because pyramids were built in the Old and the Middle Kingdom.
Yeah.
It were tombs. And in the New Kingdom, they took the peak in the Valley of the Kings and they buried the tombs underneath that one.
Yeah.
Then the Egyptian, during the Middle Kingdom, most of the New Kingdom, the king of Atil's dynasty, were actually lived in Memphis.
Yes.
And they had training in the desert of Memphis. And this is why they used to come to the pyramids, like Amenhotep II, Tutmosis IV, and they just looked at it as the pyramids of their ancestors.
In marveling at it. Yeah.
The third and smallest pharaoh pyramid at Giza belonged to the son of Khafre, named Menkaure. In the 12th century, the Sultan and son of Saladin demanded the pyramids be deconstructed and the treasures inside be destroyed as they stood against Islamic values. His men spent 8 months dismantling the smallest king's pyramid. They never found the entrance, and contrary to the myth, they never tried to blow up this pyramid. A third of his pyramid was cased in granite. Many of these pieces are strewn across the desert surrounding the monument. The granite nearest the entrance was engraved with a prayer for the pharaoh. It is possible that due to economic issues, Menkaure had a smaller pyramid with many of his nearby monuments being unfinished before his death. To the ancient Egyptians, their wish was to become part of the eternal stars, to live on, and for their name to be remembered. Leading up from Menkaure's mostly intact causeway, you will arrive at his mortuary temple at the base of his pyramid. This is where the pharaoh wanted to be remembered. However, he never finished his temple. With its labyrinthine side chambers and hallways leading to the great courtyard, and completely roofed-off offering rooms that probably were planned to hold a spirit statue of the king. The temple is mostly made from limestone and with finishings of granite. It was completed by Menkaure's son, Shepseskaf, made out of crude mud brick, as attested by Shepseskaf himself. Inside the sun-bathed courtyard was a colossal white alabaster statue of Menkaure, an immortal image of the king shown in absolute perfection.
So, inside the temple of Menkaure, right at this door, in 1907, they found a beautiful alabaster statue of the king. There's his head, exactly where I'm sitting right now. That's how it was in the sand, completely covered in mud. But we see Menkaure shown here. Beautiful eyeliner, the strap for the beard drawn on, and a moustache. Something that was quite unique was facial hair on pharaohs. Yet Menkaure is shown with this beautiful painted-on moustache. However, the statue was in complete ruin, obviously from when the roof fell down right behind me here. Yet this beautiful statue of the king shown with his painted-on eyeliner and the strap for the beard and his beautiful, unique moustache. When this statue was taken to Boston, to America, to be restored, this is the final image. Now, when we see the gaps that have been filled in and the statue has been cleaned, Menkaure has had a shave. Menkaure no longer has a moustache.
This alabaster statue may be beautiful, although the most breathtaking statues of Menkaure were found hundreds of meters away from his pyramid, buried beneath the golden sand, and are now located in the Cairo Museum. Discovered in his unfinished Valley Temple at Giza, these triad statues of Menkaure show the king wearing the white crown. Beside him, on two statues, are him with goddesses. One identified as Hathor, the other representing a nome or region of the kingdom. It is possible that these women are really his two wives. The primary wife, Ka-Emrebnebeti, represented by Hathor, and the secondary wife, Reketra, as the regional goddess. One triad statue includes a young regional god of Waset, which could be symbolizing his son and successor, Shepseskaf. His pyramid was one of the strongest and most secure. The interior did not survive ancient tomb robbers. In 1837, English explorers discovered something astonishing inside Menkaure's pyramid. In the burial chamber was a granite sarcophagus, as well as an elaborately decorated wooden coffin belonging to Menkaure.
O the Osiris, king of Upper and Lower Egypt, Menkaure, living before forever, born of the sky, king of Upper and Lower Egypt, Menkaure, living forever.
These texts on Menkaure's coffin are found in early pyramid texts, which summon the sky goddess to protect the king and assist in his resurrection. But most shockingly, there was a mummy inside. Although only the upper torso and legs remain, scientists have not been able to 100% accurately date these remains, believed to be Menkaure. Unfortunately, the granite sarcophagus sank with a ship that was transporting it back to England, along with the other set of bones of a woman discovered in Menkaure's tomb as well. Unlike his father Khafre, Menkaure had built 3 queen's pyramids near his own. Each queen's pyramid had a small mortuary temple attached, believed to be the tombs of two principal wives of the king, and the central pyramid being for his sister and the daughter of Meresankh, named Khafre. Even though Menkaure is attested with around 18 years of rule, relatively shorter than his father Khafre and grandfather Khufu, there are still many tombs for his officials near his pyramid. Much of the limestone for his temples and pyramids were quarried from the Giza Plateau itself, not wanting to waste the cliff of limestone. Many of his officials and family had their tombs dug into the rock. Issued with having only 2 wives and 4 children, one of the largest tombs in the quarry belongs to the eldest son of Menkaure, yet this son must have died young, as he never succeeded his father. Khufu became a scribe and secretary of his father. His tomb is created as a large colonnaded hall. When the tomb was entered in 1934, a seated statue of Khufu as a scribe was discovered. Inside the tomb is the prince shown with his mother, Queen Meresankh II, where he is shown holding a royal hoopoe bird. There are an estimated 500 burials here, with more still to be discovered. Some of the burials here include the director of the royal dining hall, overseer of Menkaure's quarry, noblemen and women. These tombs, dug straight into the limestone cliff, are not grand nor well decorated. These people did what they could afford, like this tomb, the false door, thoughtfully decorated in green. 2 shafts suggest this was a shared tomb, and many skeletons have been found at the quarry tombs in shafts, buried in the fetal position. Many tombs led on to the next, showing a clear sign of community between these men and women, like Ankh-Nebef, an oarsman and spirit priest of Menkaure. Tombs in the quarry tell us that even high-status people now had less grand tombs. Like Sekhemkha, he was Menkaure's chief judge and high priest of Ma'at, the goddess who inspired the divine theology of balance behind all custom in ancient Egypt. Among the many mysteries of the Giza Plateau, one more than any other interests me the most. Menkaure was succeeded by his son Khafre, ending the 4th dynasty. This is where things get muddy for Egyptologists. A controversial, yet absolutely thought-provoking tomb way out in the desert near Menkaure's sand-flooded valley temple, dedicated to a high-powered queen. Decorated on its lower half with a false palace facade, this strange tomb consists of a 2-terraced structure, similar to a step pyramid.
This too was never finished, but was intended to be the fourth pharaoh's pyramid at Giza.
Behind me is the tomb for Queen Khentkawes, possibly the first ever female pharaoh.
Khentkawes, evidence points to her being the daughter of Pharaoh Menkaure. She was married to her brother, Pharaoh Shepseskaf. However, when he died, his possible son, Userkaf, was too young to rule, and therefore Khentkawes took up the role as pharaoh, becoming the first in recorded history. The titles on the granite pillars can provide more clues. Here, her titles read, Mother of two kings of Upper and Lower Egypt, while another mentions Khentkawes as the ruler of Egypt. There is even an image of the queen sitting on a throne with what some believe is a king's Nemes headdress.
We get some people speculating about Khentkawes. Some people say she was a pharaoh, but there's no
we
proof
still
of
wouldn't
that.
really know.
Yeah.
But we think that she ruled as the last king of dynasty 4.
Yeah, because she's shown with some people believe
Yes,
is wearing a
yes,
Nemes.
yes.
Her tomb was entered in antiquity through a robber's tunnel and ransacked. The inside decorations of her tomb are very fragmented, and only pieces of her alabaster coffin with faience inlays were discovered. However, I fear that the secrets of Khentkawes are for another day. She had a small mud brick mortuary temple built, yet by her time the area between her temple, Menkaure's temple, and her unfinished pyramid was inhabited with workers from the end of the 4th dynasty. At the back of the pyramid, carved into the large hill of stone, are many tombs dotted in the hillside, undecorated and unnamed. Were these people that were close to Khentkawes, her officials, or later 5th dynasty tombs? This too might remain part of her mystery. A piece of stone jutting out of the sand. Read the word Pharaoh. Alongside it, a false door, a fragment resting in the shadow of Khentkawes' pyramid. These came from a large tomb in the near distance, with its own offering chapel in the form of a mini temple. This large mastaba was for the royal hairdresser who started his noble career during the last days of the 4th dynasty. With a burial chamber deep below, the mastaba above served only as a ceremonial purpose for Rawer and his family. Later in his career, he received the ranks of administrator, judge, and then army overseer. 2 busts of Rawer remain. Various tombs are scattered around the pyramid of Khentkawes and the mastaba of Rawer, some more grand and some more humble, just simple shaft pit tombs dug straight down.
evidence of settlements are found between and sometimes in these tombs, although now only inhabited by ghosts and reptiles. At the back of Khentkawes Hill are even more tombs, some with very long passageways leading down to elaborately decorated tombs from the end of the 4th dynasty and beginning of the 5th dynasty. The tomb of the scribe Ra-Tesen, with the man coming out of his tomb to meet with the sunlight. This is one of the last Old Kingdom tombs at Giza.
What does Giza mean to you?
No, Giza, I spent all my life living there and excavating and working in front of the Sphinx at tombs of the pyramid builders. Completely, I lived even in front of the Great Pyramid for 2 years. Then my life is connected with this site.
And if you can tell people one word about the pyramids, what would you describe them as?
The one word I could say, it's magic.
Yeah.
To everyone.
Yeah. Magic and secrets. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shukran.
The Giza Plateau still holds so much history, so many mysteries, some more tangible than others. Be that as it may, we are ever closer to understanding the secrets of Giza.
Allah Rahman.